Sure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention. Former Speaker Matt Ryan constantly would remind the members of this House that the most important vote that you make as a member of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives is that constitutional responsibility of a budget. I don't think there's anyone in this House that would like to go through what we went through last year and what the taxpayers and residents of Pennsylvania went through last year. I constantly reminded the members of this General Assembly that there was more than just 2 roads to solving a budget. We did not have to go to excessive spending and taxation, nor did we have to go to excessive tax cuts in many programs that we need, many of the residents of Pennsylvania depend on. There was a middle of the road. There was a middle of the road. What we have before us today is the middle of the road to a passage of a budget on time. Also, and I will go through this for you because I want to explain to you how we take care of our most vulnerable citizens, how we appropriate much-needed money for our educational system, and why the increase of $1.5 billion over the year before. Because I know in talking to many of my colleagues, how can this happen? Well, this budget before you spends $31.55 billion. This is a $1.5 billion increase over last year. Let me explain to you how before we got started, mandated spending increases of $1.2 billion. PACERS, increase of $345 million. I don't think there's anyone in this chamber that does not want to pay the contribution due. SERS, $143 million. Corrections and probation and parole, almost $152 million. Contractual responsibilities. Our state police, almost $12 million. Human services, federal mandated increases. Federal mandated increases, $324 million. In order to balance budgets in the past, we use accounting procedures, phase in Social Security, delayed payments, county child welfare, $226 million. Altogether, $1.2 billion before we put 1 cent on the paper. This budget leaves us $300 million. $266 million, ladies and gentlemen, is going to public education. Basic education, $200 million. Between the Republican appropriations staff and the Democratic appropriations staff, we went over every department in human services. In every department in human services. That is our largest department in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And we decreased that by over $500 million. So now, let's see what it does for us. In education, I mentioned $200 million increase. It brings our basic education funding spending to $5.895 billion. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the highest this line item has ever been, including the years of the federal stimulus. Pre-K counts will increase by $25 million. Head Start supplemental assistance will increase by $5 million. Special education for our children will increase by $20 million. Early intervention, $10.4 million. In total, $266 million will be increased to our state budget. I'm sure each and every one of you have received your basic education funding distribution for your school districts. Public safety. This budget will allow us to start 3 new cadet classes. This will put 180 new state troopers on our highways. We also realize that maintaining our prison system and our parole process is vital to public safety. Thus, the increase in the Department of Corrections of $152 million. The environmental protection. With this budget, we acknowledge the treasure that Pennsylvania has in its open lands, state parks, and state forest. We realize that it's incumbent for us as Pennsylvania legislators to protect this environment for our future generations. We were so fortunate for many years to be able to put royalties and rents into our oil and gas lease fund from the drilling that was going on in Pennsylvania. Because this industry has slowed down, we transferred an additional $48 million into the general fund to take care of our environment, to protect programs for conservation and recreation, growing greener, and our hazardous sites cleanup fund. I was proud to stand with many of my colleagues just last week with our governor in the rotunda regarding, sadly, just like the rest of the nation, the rise of heroin overdoses. This budget has an increase of $5 million in the Department of Drug and Alcohol and $10 million in DHS to help combat this dreadful disease. We also know that we're going to have a special session on that issue alone. And I know each and every one of you will be interested on how we can solve this problem. Our most vulnerable citizens that receive money from Human Services. I'm sure you've received phone calls and visits from these folks. Sometimes they're 75 years of age, taking care of a 50-year-old disabled child. We put money in here to take care of a couple hundred more people on the waiting list. We've also taken care of our special ed children who graduate this year so they can become viable citizens of this Commonwealth. 700 graduates of special education. We squeezed every little bit that we could from DHS, but took care of our most vulnerable citizens. We did this, I think this is important. We did this without a proposal to raise the state income tax on our hardworking businesses and hardworking people of Pennsylvania. We did not increase or expand in this proposal the state sales tax by finding the middle of the road. I want to thank the members of the Appropriations Committee that put together this legislation, finding the middle road. They realized the mandated expenses that we had to cover and realized the responsibility that we have of taking care of the hospitals, the nursing homes, and our children. We did this in a bipartisan way, just like we did pension reform, just like we did liquor privatization. We're moving the state forward. I ask each and every one of you to realize this is the most important vote that you make as a state legislature. This legislature cannot control federal mandates. It cannot control the baby boomers that are retiring and needing our help in retirement through disabilities. They're almost double the working class. This middle-of-the-road budget and plan takes care of those. Please, please, let's move this process. Let's pass this budget so we do what constitutionally we are responsible to do. pass an on-time budget. Be proud to stand with you, and we did it without broad-based taxes. Thank you.